Hi guys. So I posted a video fairly recently and kind of mentioned um, kind of the divide between native and non-native English teachers. And that seems to be something that's quite persistent um, in my experience in Japan. The marketing tends to kind of push native teachers on people. And kind of at the same time just ignores the fact that teaching is actually a completely separate skill from speaking a language. I'm a native teacher myself. Quick background, I've been in Japan almost 11 years now. 10 and a half of those have been spent strictly teaching English to all kinds of different levels and ages and all kinds of different places. Um, I'm actually in my own school now. This school just turned 4 last week, and I am making a career change, actually. I'm going to de-emphasize my role in life as an English teacher and focus more on remote work and software development, which is something I've kind of cultivated an interest for and realized as a means to benefit my family and my own future and blah, blah, blah. So, but back to the issue between native teachers and non-native teachers, right? So English is always touted as the global language, and it really is. I mean, if you've ever traveled around the world, um, you'll notice that English is the most universally applicable, useful language, right? Which means in traveling around the world, most of the people you're going to be dealing with speaking English are not native speakers, right? They're all over the world. So global doesn't mean America and Canada and England, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa, right? It means the world. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Of course, who am I, right? I got a job because I'm a native speaker. Okay, great. Um, but I'm kind of just thinking aloud and kind of encouraging commentary from anyone who sees this video about the issue at hand. Um, and this is something that's not widely acknowledged. The fact is that there are a lot of native teachers working in Japan and elsewhere in the world. There's kind of a premium placed upon them, right? It looks good as an English school if you have a native teacher working for you. But the truth is, in my case, good native teachers versus mediocre native teachers and clueless native teachers, that ratio is not a very good one. It's actually kind of rare for a native speaker to also have good teaching skill. Because as it is, you can actually get hired as long as you're presentable. And you have a university degree, that's definitely a plus. You can get hired solely on the virtue that you're a native speaker. That's just kind of a weird niche thing about it. But can you imagine another industry like that? You know, I can't off the top of my head. And I would say it's probably more difficult to get a job as a waiter in the US than it is as an English teacher in Japan if you're a native speaker. The hiring process and everything, it's just set up for people to very easily get jobs. So there's also some other issues concerning the demographics in Japan, as um, in my area, there's far fewer native teachers than there were before, and the government's hiring more ALTs left and right. But it's just feeding the fire, really. They're not bringing in the kind of talent you would expect, if you're talking about a teacher. And so it creates this kind of weird situation where there's the marketing side of things, and then there's this gap where actual learning and actual teaching are sometimes happening and sometimes not. But everyone's getting paid and the schools are going on. It's not necessarily the biggest deal in the world, I mean, obviously, but I'm kind of curious on everyone's thoughts. Teaching skill, actual teaching skill, and English skill, of course, versus just being a native teacher. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm in a position now where I'm going to be moving away from my school, and I'm looking for someone to replace me. I've spent a lot of time and energy building up this school, and I have it seems to be hovering around 70 students, give or take, of all different ages. And So far, the only serious applicants I've had have been non-native teachers. And does that mean I should just close down the school and be like, sorry, 70 students, can't find a native teacher, so goodbye? I mean, no, that would be ridiculous, right? And so that's one part of it. And now I'm also kind of wondering, what's the intrinsic value of a native teacher? Um, if I go shopping for a stereo or a computer, I don't always get top of the line, because I know in my heart can't, I don't have a use for all of that, it's too much for me, and it's just going to kind of backfire and overwhelm me, and aside from costing me a lot of money, I generally go for what I need, the best value. And that brings into the issue, like, a lot of it also depends on the student levels. If you're looking for someone to teach a bunch of elementary school kids the colors and shapes, you don't necessarily need a university graduate in education from the United States for that. And I'm not trying to sell my students short. I'm trying like crazy to continue to provide them a good service at a reasonable price. My school's really cheap compared to what I see around, and I did that on purpose because I wanted people to keep coming for a long time and to gradually evolve over the years and eventually end up with a very stable, if basic level of English. And that's been working. But now I'm at a position where it's like, I can't keep doing this. I'm getting older. I've got 3 kids. Um, so what do I do? And I'm not trying to pull a fast one like, hey, it's a native teacher over there, and then they can, hey, where'd he go? He's gone. Yeah. So I think ESL in Japan is likely going to change. There's a couple of factors influencing that. Probably the biggest two are that salaries haven't really changed since the 90s. And if you want to make more than that, you basically got to start your own school, which is a huge investment, right? As you guys know, this group on Facebook, you've all been there, done that, and so it's not something you can expect from every single teacher that comes over here. And also, Japan can be a hard place to live. So more and more, I think we're going to start seeing teachers coming from areas of the world where English is a second language. They still speak very well. They can still work in English. Although they may not be native teachers. So personally, I've seen a lot of people coming from the Philippines, Malaysia, and teaching here in my area. And with English being the global language, is it really the case that native teachers should kind of have a monopoly on the ESL industry? Provided non-native teachers can meet the requisite level of reading, writing, and speaking, why couldn't they work as English teachers in Japan? I'm not trying to kind of undermine people's efforts, and yeah, it's great if someone's a native speaker and they're a good teacher. But what if they're not a good teacher, And a lot of that happens. I've seen a lot of that in places I've worked. So I do have one prospect who I'll mention. Amazing. I've actually worked with her before. We worked together for about 18 months. And she's a local Japanese female. But she speaks amazing English. It's 100% fluent. It almost sounds native level. She's licensed to teach Eiken, I think 2. I think she's taken the Eiken first level. She's been teaching the better part of 10 years. And she's interested in taking the position I'm offering coming up in the spring. And I'm really considering giving it to her because I think she'd be an amazing asset for the school. She's got an amazing level, ton of experience. She speaks Japanese, of course, which is great for helping out with office work and talking to parents. And I think she's 100% ideal, but she's Japanese. So let's take a look at that from her perspective. Like, what's that about, She's been putting so much effort over the years, studying the language, working as a teacher, building a relationship with her own students. And now there's this position coming along where it's basically almost like a partnership in my school, where you handle the front end, I handle the back end, we collaborate on issues, we give each other feedback, I treat you the very best I can, you help with the school, you establish yourself in the community, you build a relationship with these kids, and I'll pay you more than probably any school in the island is going to pay you if you do this to the standard I want. Now, so should I really be even considering the fact that, you're kind of Japanese, so yeah, no. I mean, it just doesn't feel right. So that's where I'm at. You know, it's kind of reality is coming crashing down around me in the sense that it's really saying like, dude, you need to start thinking about what's the future of this school without you as the teacher. And that's where I'm at. So I would love to hear any feedback from you guys, any commentary. I know those of you on the groups are devoted, solid teachers that have put your time in and cultivated your craft. And I'm not trying to say that you don't deserve to be where you are or to be selling what you are selling at the prices you're selling. I'm speaking more to the idea of the like 22-year-old kid who gets off the plane and now he's an English teacher and working at these big schools and basically delivering no value to his students except just parroting, you know, the names of shapes and stuff. So there's so much of that, and it's so hard for students to know, you know, until they're in the school, who's a good teacher. So anyways, I'm starting to jabber here. Native, non-native, teaching skill versus where you were born. So please, yeah, give me some feedback, guys. I'd love to hear back from you. There it is.